The Island of the Dead. Chapter 1. The Forbidden Coordinates. The sea was restless that night. Waves crashed against the sides of the research vessel Mariner's Hope as it ventured into uncharted waters. Dr. Elias Hawthorne, a seasoned archaeologist, peered through his fogged-up binoculars, scanning the horizon. The expedition was supposed to follow a pre-mapped course, but an unusual radio signal had drawn them off track. It was a steady, rhythmic pulse, almost like a heartbeat, coming from an island that did not exist on any known map. "We shouldn't be here," muttered Claire Vasquez, the team's geologist. Her dark eyes flickered with unease as she studied the sonar readings. There's no landmass recorded in this area. And yet, the radar says otherwise. Elias frowned but dismissed her concerns. He had spent his entire life chasing the unknown, and this was precisely the kind of discovery that could rewrite history. As the boat moved closer, the dense fog parted, revealing a landmass shrouded in mist. An eerie silence blanketed the air, suffocating the usual symphony of seagulls and ocean breeze. The island loomed ahead, covered in an unnatural darkness. But it was not the landscape that sent a chill down their spines. It was the unmistakable presence of figures standing on the shore, motionless and waiting. Chapter 2. The Watchers. As the research team docked, the figures remained eerily still. Elias, Claire, and the others, Jackson, the navigator, Dr. Margaret Fay, an anthropologist, and Ryan, a cameraman documenting their findings, stepped onto the damp sand. The air was thick with the scent of decay. The figures standing before them were not human. Or rather, they once had been. Each of them wore a mask mold to their features, as if cast from their faces at the moment of death. Some bore expressions of agony, others of serenity. Their clothing was tattered, yet they moved, blinked, and breathed just as any living person would. "Who are you?" Elias whispered, his voice barely audible. One of the masked figures stepped forward. It was a woman, her once elegant gown now moth-eaten and frayed. Her voice, though distorted, was unmistakably human. "You have come to the Island of the Dead," she said. "And now, you belong here." Chapter 3. The Name on the Stone. The team pressed forward despite the unease clawing at their chests. The island was not devoid of life. It had villages, markets, even music playing softly in the distance. But everywhere they turned, there were the masked ones. Some stood by windows, watching. Others sat in rocking chairs, heads slightly tilted as if listening to voices unseen. "Let's document everything," Elias instructed, keeping his voice steady. He needed proof. Proof that they weren't hallucinating. Ryan aimed his camera at a row of tombstones, partially buried in the soft, black soil. As he wiped away the moss covering the engravings, his hands trembled. "What the hell?" he breathed, stumbling backward. The tombstone bore his name. Ryan Matthews. Birth year correct. Death year, today's date. The others rushed to his side, only to find similar gravestones, with their own names etched into the cold stone. Their hearts pounded as realization set in. They had not just arrived at the Island of the Dead. They had been expected. Chapter 4. No Escape. Panic set in. Jackson sprinted back toward the boat, but as soon as he set foot on the dock, the Mariner's Hope was no longer there. The ship had vanished, leaving nothing but dark water stretching endlessly to the horizon. "This isn't possible!" Claire cried out, clutching her chest. "We were just on that boat, where did it go?" A whisper drifted through the air, disembodied and chilling. "You were never on that boat. You have always been here." The island was shifting. Roads that had led to the shore now twisted into unfamiliar paths. The villagers, if they could be called that, began moving toward them, their masked faces blank, yet somehow filled with silent judgment. Margaret grabbed Elias's arm, her fingernails digging into his skin. "There's something wrong with this place. We need to find a way out," Elias said through gritted teeth. But deep down, he feared that there was no way out at all. Chapter 5. The Ritual. A great bell tolled from the island center. The villagers all turned in unison and began walking toward it, forming a silent procession. Something was happening. Something ancient and terrible. Margaret gasped. They're preparing for something. The team followed, keeping to the shadows. The procession led them to a massive stone altar, carved with unrecognizable symbols. The masked ones gathered in a circle, murmuring in a language that scraped against their minds like nails on a chalkboard. Ryan's camera shook in his hands as he whispered, This is a ritual." Then, one of the villagers turned to them and spoke in a voice that sent a chill down their spines. "The newcomers must be prepared." Chapter 6: The Final Truth. Elias's breath caught in his throat. The villagers grabbed them, their grip ice cold. They were led to the center of the altar, where the masked woman from before stood, holding an ornate dagger. She lifted the blade and drove it into her own heart. The villagers did not react as her body crumpled. Instead, they stepped forward, one by one, removing their masks. Beneath them were not faces, but reflections, mirrored versions of Elias, Claire, Jackson, Margaret, and Ryan. A dark realization hit Elias like a freight train. They weren't being sacrificed. They were being replaced. Their own reflection stepped forward, eyes cold and knowing. And as Elias tried to scream, the world around him dissolved into shadow. The next morning, a new expedition team arrived at the island, lured by a strange radio signal. 5 figures stood waiting on the shore, wearing familiar faces. Waiting for the cycle to begin again. Grandfather's Diary. Chapter 1: The Inheritance. The attic smelled of dust and old wood, the scent of memories long forgotten. James had never been particularly close to his grandfather, but now, standing in the dim light filtering through the small window, he regretted it. His grandfather, Arthur Whitmore, had passed away a week ago, leaving behind a house full of relics from a past James barely understood. His parents had given him the responsibility of sorting through the old man's belongings before the house was sold. It was supposed to be a simple task: pack up the clothes, set aside anything valuable, and donate the rest. But when James opened an old wooden trunk in the corner of the attic, he found something unexpected: a leather-bound diary, its pages yellowed with age. Curious, he wiped off the dust and flipped it open. The ink was faded, but still legible. The first entry was dated April 3, 1942, his grandfather's handwriting, neat and deliberate. "I have finally arrived in France. The war is nothing like what I imagined. I have no choice but to do what must be done. May God have mercy on us all." James's breath caught. His grandfather had fought in World War II, but he had never spoken much about it. As he turned the pages, he realized the diary was more than just a record of war. It was a story. A mystery. And it had just begun. Chapter 2: The Impossible Entry. James read late into the night, learning about a version of his grandfather he had never known. Arthur had been a code breaker, working undercover for the Allies in occupied France. He had written about espionage, cryptic messages, and secret meetings in candlelit rooms. But as James neared the last few pages, his fingers trembled. The second to last entry was dated yesterday. His heart pounded as he flipped to the final page. April 12, 2024. That was tomorrow's date. The ink looked fresh. The words sent a chill down his spine. James will find this diary today. He will read until late at night. But he must not ignore the warning on the next page. His hand shook as he turned the page. It was blank, except for one line. "Do not go into the basement." James's breath hitched. His grandfather's house didn't have a basement. Chapter 3: The Hidden Door. James tried to dismiss the eerie feeling that settled over him, convincing himself it was some elaborate joke. But as he moved through the old house, something nagged at him. The floor plan, he had seen it before, showed no basement. But his grandfather had lived here for over 50 years. Could it be possible that there was a hidden room? Determined, he began knocking on the floors, listening for hollow sounds. Hours passed, frustration mounting, until finally, near the back of the study, he heard it. A hollow echo beneath the floorboards. His pulse quickened. He moved aside an old rug, revealing a small, nearly invisible seam in the wooden planks. A hidden trapdoor. With hesitant fingers, he pried it open. A cold draft blew up from the darkness below. Chapter 4: The basement that shouldn't exist. The stairs were steep, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and old stone. James held his phone's flashlight in front of him, revealing a space that shouldn't exist. The basement was filled with artifacts, maps, old newspapers, photographs pinned to corkboards. In the center of the room sat a single wooden chair, and on the floor beneath it, another diary, identical to the one he had found upstairs. His hands trembled as he picked it up and turned to the first page. "You were never supposed to find this place." James's breath came in shallow gasps. He flipped through the pages. This diary wasn't about World War II. It was about him. It described events from his childhood, teenage years, even things he had never told anyone. The final entry was dated April 12, 2024. James has found the second diary. He will now learn the truth. But he must choose wisely. The door must remain closed, or history will be rewritten. James looked up. At the far end of the basement, an old iron door stood slightly ajar, revealing a darkness beyond it that seemed impossibly deep. Then, he heard a whisper. A voice that sounded exactly like his grandfather's. "James, don't open it." Chapter 5: The Choice. James felt paralyzed. His grandfather had predicted everything up to this moment. But was the diary truly warning him? Or was it guiding him toward something he was meant to uncover? Slowly, he approached the door. The air around it was unnaturally cold. He reached for the handle. And then, his phone buzzed. It was a text message. From an unknown number. "Don't." James's heart pounded. He turned back to the diary, rereading the words. The door must remain closed. Shaking, he stepped away. He turned and ran up the stairs, slamming the trapdoor shut behind him. At that moment, the house trembled. A deep, unnatural sigh echoed from below. And then, silence. James never opened that door. He sealed the trapdoor shut, left the house, and never returned. Chapter 6: The Final Entry. Years later, James still wondered what lay beyond that door. But he never dared to return. The house was sold, the diaries locked away. He told himself it was all just coincidence. A trick of the mind. Until one day, a package arrived at his doorstep. No sender. No return address. Inside was a single, leather-bound diary. And on the first page, in his grandfather's familiar handwriting, were 5 words. "You made the right choice." The language that must not be spoken. Chapter 1: The Broadcast. The first time the world heard the language, it was through a radio broadcast. A strange, untraceable transmission cut into major frequencies across the globe. It was neither music nor speech as we knew it. It was something else, a cascade of phonemes, an arrangement of syllables that did not belong to any known linguistic system. At first, it seemed harmless. An oddity. A glitch. Then, the first reports came in. People who had heard the broadcast were acting strangely. Some sat motionless, eyes wide with revelation. Others spoke in tongues no one understood, their voices warping into impossible tones. Many simply screamed, a scream that did not end until their vocal cords shredded. By the time authorities managed to cut the broadcast, over 10,000 people worldwide had been affected. A global emergency was declared. The United Nations issued an order: the sound must never be spoken again. They called it the Forbidden Tongue. Chapter 2: The Linguist's Dilemma. Dr. Adrian Carter was one of the first linguists assigned to the case. A specialist in lost languages and semiotics, he had been summoned to Geneva under the strictest secrecy. In a heavily secured facility, he and a team of experts were given controlled access to a recording of the language. They were instructed to study it, decode it, but never to say it aloud. Listening to it was already dangerous enough. The team worked in complete silence, communicating only through written notes. They analyzed the patterns, the phonetic structures, the rhythm that seemed to follow no known logic. But something was wrong. Every linguist who spent too much time studying the language began to change. Their thoughts became erratic, their notes increasingly incomprehensible. One by one, they disappeared, some into silence, some into madness. Adrian should have stopped. But he didn't. Because, in the middle of all the chaos, he had begun to understand it. Chapter 3: The Pattern That Should Not Exist. Adrian spent weeks compiling what remained of his colleagues' research. What he discovered should have been impossible. The language wasn't like human speech. It wasn't bound by grammar, nor by syntax. It wasn't even linear. It was a code. A perfect, universal code underlying all known languages. More than that, it was woven into reality itself. The more he deciphered, the more the world itself seemed to respond to his thoughts. When he wrote the first sequence of the language in his notebook, the ink rearranged itself, spelling out something new, a message not of his own making. When he focused on the sounds, his office shifted. The walls bent at impossible angles, the air warped as if it were merely a suggestion. And in his dreams, he saw them. The ones who spoke before. Chapter 4: Are the Eyes That Watch. The government was watching him. Ever since his colleagues started disappearing, Adrian knew he was being monitored. His emails were intercepted, his movements tracked. The higher-ups feared that anyone who understood the language would become dangerous. They weren't wrong. Because Adrian had discovered the next phrase. And with it, he had glimpsed something beyond human comprehension. It wasn't just a language. It was the source code of existence itself. With the right intonation, reality could be rewritten. With the right words, he could undo death. With the full language, one could become a god. And someone else had already figured it out. Chapter 5: The Silent War. A faction within the government had been studying the language in secret. Unlike Adrian, they didn't fear it. They worshipped it. They called themselves the speakers. They had already begun using the language. Quietly. Subtly. Changing things without the world noticing. And they wanted Adrian to join them. "You've seen the truth," they told him. Why fight it? But Adrian had also seen something else. He had seen what happened to those who spoke too much. They ceased to be human. Their voices became static. Their eyes became voids. They became conduits, mere channels for the language to continue speaking itself. Adrian ran. Chapter 6: The Final Sentence. Now, Adrian is in hiding. The world believes the language is under control. That it has been silenced. But it hasn't. He still hears it, in the wind, in the whispers of strangers. In the way reality seems to hesitate around certain places. The language cannot be destroyed. Because it isn't something humans invented. It is something humans were never meant to hear. And now that it has been spoken, it will never be silenced again. Chapter 7: The Last Speaker. One night, Adrian receives a letter. There is no return address. No stamp. Just a simple, folded piece of paper with 6 words scrawled in ink. "You are now the last speaker." As he reads the words, the walls of his apartment begin to shift. The letters start to glow, rearranging themselves. His hands tremble as he hears a familiar whisper. A whisper that speaks without sound. A whisper that understands him. And Adrian realizes he is not alone. He has never been alone. The Life Swap Club. Chapter 1: The Offer. Ethan Carter had always been fascinated by the idea of living someone else's life. Not permanently, of course, just for a little while, long enough to experience something different. So when he stumbled upon a sleek black card tucked between the pages of a second-hand book, the words embossed in silver intrigued him. The Life Swap Club, trade your life for a week. Experience the extraordinary. It had to be a joke. But curiosity got the best of him. A few days later, he found himself sitting in a luxurious lounge, sipping on a glass of aged whiskey he couldn't afford. Across from him sat a sharply dressed woman with a knowing smile. "Mr. Carter, we provide an exclusive service," she explained, steepling her fingers. "For 7 days, you will step into someone else's life, and they will step into yours. Full immersion, memories, habits, even subconscious instincts will be transferred. When the week ends, everything reverts. No harm, no foul." It sounded impossible. Ludicrous, even. But Ethan, stuck in his monotonous 9-to-5 job, was willing to take the risk. So, the woman continued, sliding a contract toward him. "Whose life would you like to live?" Chapter 2: The Billionaire's World. Ethan's choice was simple. He wanted to be rich. Moments later, he woke up in a penthouse suite larger than his entire apartment building. The bed alone felt like it could fit a football team, and the view, the view, overlooked an entire city skyline. He sat up, groggy but exhilarated, as memories not his own flooded his mind. The name Alexander Sinclair floated to the surface. CEO of multiple multinational companies. A man so wealthy that his daily problems included deciding which private jet to take. "This is it," Ethan whispered, grinning. "This is the life." Then his phone rang. A butler's voice came through. "Sir, you have an emergency meeting at 10. Also, your wife is demanding to speak with you immediately." Ethan blinked. Wife? Chapter 3: The First Red Flag. The first 24 hours in Alexander Sinclair's life were chaotic. He dodged his wife, a stunning but terrifying woman named Victoria, who seemed far too eager to discuss their impending divorce settlement. His calendar was packed with meetings, legal disputes, and hostile takeovers. And then there were the security details, men in black suits constantly murmuring into earpieces, always watching. By the second day, Ethan started to notice oddities. His body knew things he didn't. He instinctively signed documents without reading them, gave orders in multiple languages, and somehow remembered safe codes to vaults full of money. Then there were the phone calls. One at 2 a.m. A voice distorted by static. "You need to leave. Now. You don't understand what you've stepped into." Chapter 4: A Dangerous Game. Ethan soon realized Alexander Sinclair's life wasn't just about luxury. It was a minefield. By day 3, he uncovered coded messages in emails, implying Sinclair was entangled in secret dealings with powerful, dangerous people. The kind of people who didn't tolerate mistakes. A mysterious briefcase appeared in his office, containing a burner phone, an untraceable passport, and a plane ticket to Switzerland. A clear invitation, or warning. Then there was the shadow. Wherever he went, he felt watched. Not by his security team, but by something, or someone, else. And then came the dinner invitation. Chapter 5: The Dinner That Changed Everything. Victoria, his supposed wife, insisted he attend a private dinner. Ethan had no choice. The restaurant was candlelit, exclusive. A man named Lucien Devereaux sat across from him, sipping wine. "I know you're not Alexander," Lucien said casually. "I also know how you got here." Ethan's blood ran cold. "You're part of the Life Swap Club," Lucien continued, smiling. "I assume you thought you'd be spending a week enjoying yachts and caviar. Instead, you've stumbled into something ancient." Lucien leaned in. "Did they tell you what happens if you die during your swap?" Ethan shook his head slowly. Lucien chuckled. "You stay." Chapter 6: The Escape Plan. Ethan had 4 days left before the swap reversed. 4 days to survive. With Lucien's help, he pieced together the truth. The Life Swap Club wasn't just a business, it was a high-stakes game played by the world's elite. Some swapped for power, others for thrills. A few, like Sinclair, used it to escape their enemies. The real Alexander Sinclair was gone. And if Ethan wanted to live, he had to vanish too. Lucien arranged a fake kidnapping. It had to be convincing enough for Sinclair's enemies to believe he was eliminated. The plan was simple: disappear until the swap ended. It worked. Almost. Chapter 7: The Final Twist. On the last day of the swap, Ethan lay low in a safe house, waiting for the transition. But when he woke up, he was still Alexander Sinclair. Panic set in. He called the club. No response. Then a message arrived. The real Alexander Sinclair never wanted to return. He bought your life. Welcome to your new permanent identity. Ethan's hand shook. His old life, his friends, his family, were gone. And then, a knock at the door. Lucien stood there, smirking. Welcome to the game, Mr. Sinclair. Epilogue: The New Player. Months later, Ethan, now fully Alexander Sinclair, sat at a private club, watching a new batch of recruits sign their contracts. He slid a black card toward an unsuspecting young woman. The Life Swap Club trade your life for a week. Experience the extraordinary. He smiled. Careful what you wish for. The world on a postage stamp. Once upon a time, in a small town nestled between rolling green hills and a winding silver river, lived a boy named Oliver. Oliver was an ordinary boy in most ways. He attended school, played in the fields, and loved to read books late into the night. But there was one thing that made Oliver different: he had an insatiable curiosity for the forgotten and the mysterious. One day, while exploring his grandfather's dusty attic, Oliver stumbled upon an old wooden box. Inside, nestled among yellowed letters and brittle envelopes, was a single, ancient postage stamp. It was unlike any stamp Oliver had ever seen. The colors shimmered as if they were alive, depicting a miniature landscape, a kingdom of towering castles, golden fields, and winding rivers. At the bottom, tiny letters spelled out, "The Kingdom of Philitara." Intrigued, Oliver carefully peeled the stamp off the envelope and held it up to the light. At that very moment, a gust of wind blew through the attic, and the world around him swirled. The floor vanished beneath his feet, and Oliver felt himself falling, not in a frightening way, but as if he were floating gently like a feather. Chapter 1: Arrival in Philitara. When Oliver opened his eyes, he found himself standing in the middle of a cobblestone street. Around him, the world was unlike anything he had ever seen. The sky was painted in hues of violet and gold, and the air smelled sweet, like honey and fresh parchment. People bustled around in elegant robes, and market stalls overflowed with goods, crystal fruits, glowing quills, and bottled whispers that hummed softly. "Welcome to Philitara," a voice said behind him. Oliver turned to find a girl about his age, with bright green eyes and auburn hair tied in a long braid. She wore a cloak adorned with tiny stamps, each bearing different images. "My name is Ilara," she said. "You must be a traveler." "A traveler?" Oliver asked, confused. Ilara smiled knowingly. "Only travelers can enter the world of stamps. But you've come at a strange time. Philitara is in danger." Before Oliver could ask more, a shadow passed over them. Looking up, he saw a massive, ink-black storm cloud curling over the city, swallowing buildings as it spread. The people screamed and ran as the edges of the world flickered like a candle about to be snuffed out. "We have to go." Ilara grabbed Oliver's hand and pulled him through the streets. "The stamp worlds are vanishing. We need to find the eternal stamp before it's too late." Chapter 2: The Journey Begins. Ilara led Oliver to a towering library at the city's heart. Inside, the walls stretched endlessly upward, lined with books and scrolls that glowed softly in the dim light. At the center of the room stood a man dressed in a robe covered in tiny postage stamps. "Master Archivist," Ilara said urgently, "the kingdom is fading. We need the eternal stamp." The archivist peered at them through round spectacles. "Many have sought it, but none have returned," he said gravely. The Eternal Stamp is the only way to preserve the stamp worlds forever, but it is hidden within the Forgotten Archive, a place lost to time. Oliver clenched his fists. Then we have to find it. The archivist nodded and handed them a map etched onto parchment as thin as a butterfly's wing. Follow the path of the stamped river. It will lead you where you need to go. Chapter 3: The Stamped River. Their journey took them across landscapes that changed as they moved. One moment, they walked through a desert of shifting letters, the next, a forest where trees grew envelopes instead of leaves. Finally, they reached the stamped river, where water rippled like ink spreading across a page. The river carried bits of paper, each containing a snippet of a forgotten story. Elara pointed to a boat tethered to the shore. "We sail from here." As they drifted down the river, Oliver reached into the water and pulled out a floating page. It told the story of a lost kingdom swallowed by time. The words seemed to whisper in his ear, "Only those who believe in forgotten stories can bring them back." Suddenly, the river darkened. A great shadow loomed overhead. From the waters rose the ink wraith, a creature of shifting black tendrils and hollow, glowing eyes. "The stories must fade," it roared. "All stamps must be forgotten." Elara grabbed Oliver's hand. "We must believe in Philatara," she shouted. "The more we believe, the stronger it becomes." Oliver thought of the bustling streets, the golden skies, the people. "Philatara is real," he cried. The words crackled with power. The river shone with golden light, and the ink wraith screeched, dissolving into harmless droplets of ink. Chapter 4: The Forgotten Archive. The river carried them to a massive vault sealed by a golden lock. As Oliver held up the old postage stamp he had found in his attic, it glowed, and the doors creaked open. Inside, shelves upon shelves stretched into the distance, filled with stamps from countless worlds. At the center sat a single, gleaming stamp, the Eternal Stamp. Oliver reached for it, and as his fingers brushed against it, the world around them trembled. The stamp rose into the air, glowing brilliantly, and then burst apart into countless smaller stamps that flew into the sky, restoring the fading worlds. Philatara was saved. Chapter 5: Homeward Bound. As the city rejoiced, Elara turned to Oliver. "Your journey is not over, traveler," she said. "There are still many stamp worlds in need of protection." Before Oliver could reply, the wind swirled around him once more. He felt himself being lifted, the world fading into light. With a gasp, Oliver found himself back in his grandfather's attic, the wooden box before him. The ancient stamp lay in his hand, now ordinary and worn. Had it all been real? Then he noticed something new, a fresh stamp tucked in his pocket. It shimmered with an invitation for the next adventure, "Just believe." And Oliver smiled, knowing his journey had only just begun. The Shadow Tailor. Chapter 1: The Mysterious Tailor. In the heart of an old city, nestled between crumbling alleyways and forgotten cobblestone streets, stood a peculiar little shop. Its wooden sign bore no name, only an intricate pair of silver scissors engraved into the dark oak. Locals whispered of its enigmatic owner, a tailor who never made clothes, only worked on shadows. Elias was a young man burdened by the weight of failure. He had tried his hand at countless trades, painting, writing, even business, but nothing seemed to stick. Each endeavor crumbled beneath the crushing doubt that gnawed at his soul. One evening, as he wandered aimlessly through the city, he found himself standing before the shadowy shop. A whisper of curiosity pulled him inside. The shop smelled of old fabric and something else, something intangible, like the scent of forgotten dreams. At the counter sat an elderly man with silver hair and piercing blue eyes. He was dressed immaculately in a deep grey vest, his fingers idly spinning a pair of delicate silver scissors. "Welcome, traveler," the man said, his voice smooth and measured. "You have come seeking a new beginning." Elias blinked. I don't know what I'm seeking." The tailor smiled knowingly. "You seek certainty. You wish for a shadow that will never falter, never hesitate. A shadow that embodies success." Elias hesitated. "You can change my shadow?" The tailor nodded. "Shadows are more than mere reflections of our form. They carry the weight of who we are, our regrets, our weaknesses, our memories. I can tailor yours into something new. Elias swallowed hard, the temptation too great. Then give me a perfect shadow. Make me fearless, successful. Make me someone worthy. The tailor's eyes darkened for a brief moment. Perfection comes at a price, young man. Are you willing to pay it? Elias nodded without hesitation. The tailor gestured toward a velvet chair in the center of the shop. As Elias sat, a golden lamp flickered to life, casting a long, uneven shadow behind him. The tailor moved with swift precision, his scissors flashing in the dim light as he began to trim and reshape the darkness at Elias's feet. Chapter 2: The Perfect Life. When Elias stepped out of the shop, he felt different, lighter, sharper, as though the air itself bent in his favor. His new shadow stretched long and confident beneath the streetlights, moving with a fluid grace he had never possessed before. And the changes began immediately. The next morning, he submitted a manuscript to a prestigious publisher. It was accepted instantly. Soon, his paintings began selling for extraordinary prices. Strangers gravitated toward him, enthralled by his charisma. His business ventures flourished, and within months, he was a man of renown, success trailing in his wake like an obedient servant. But something gnawed at him. At first, it was barely noticeable, small gaps in his memory, forgotten conversations. Then, he realized something more chilling. When he stood in front of a mirror, he saw himself, but he did not recognize the man he had become. The expressions, the way he moved, it felt like watching a stranger's reflection. One evening, he tested his theory. He placed a hand over his chest, trying to recall the feeling of nervousness before a presentation, the crushing doubt that had always been part of him. But there was nothing. Just a hollow certainty, a scripted confidence. The man he had been, the man who had struggled, who had failed, who had learned, was gone. Panic set in. He rushed back to the tailor's shop, his breath ragged. Chapter 3: The Truth About Shadows. The shop was as he had left it, dimly lit, untouched by time. The tailor looked up as Elias burst through the door, his piercing gaze calm as ever. "You've returned," the tailor observed. "What troubles you?" Elias's hands trembled. "You took something from me." I don't feel like myself. My failures, my doubts, they were part of me. And now I don't know who I am." The tailor sighed, setting down his scissors. "You asked for perfection, Elias. But perfection is not human. It is an illusion. A hollow echo of what we think we desire." Elias clenched his fists. "Then undo it. Give me back my shadow." The tailor studied him for a long moment before nodding. "There is a way. But it will not be easy." He gestured to a full-length mirror at the back of the shop. "Step through." Elias hesitated, then moved forward, pressing his palm against the glass. It rippled like liquid, and before he could withdraw, he was pulled inside. Chapter 4: The Shadow's Choice. Inside the mirror was a world of twilight, a place where shadows whispered and flickered, living entities with voices of their own. And there, standing before him, was his old shadow, the one the tailor had cut away. It stared at him, its form shifting uncertainly. "You abandoned me," it murmured. "You thought I was weakness." Elias swallowed hard. "I was wrong. You were my lessons, my growth. Without you, I'm just empty." The shadow tilted its head. "Then take me back. But know this, once we are whole again, you will struggle. You will fail. Are you ready to embrace imperfection?" Elias nodded, tears stinging his eyes. "Yes." The shadow surged forward, enveloping him. A flood of emotions returned, his first failed painting, the sting of rejection, the fear of not being enough. But with them came something else, resilience. The ability to stand up after every fall. When he awoke, he was back in the shop. The tailor was watching him with a small smile. "Welcome back, Elias." Chapter 5: A new beginning. Elias left the shop as a different man, not the perfect figure he had once sought to be, but himself. A man who could fail, who could stumble, but who could also grow. His first painting after that moment was different from all the rest. It wasn't flawless. It wasn't extraordinary. But it was honest. And that made it more beautiful than any masterpiece he had ever created. As he walked away, his shadow followed him, not perfect, not untouchable, but real. And for the first time in his life, that was enough. Thus, the legend of the Shadow Tailor lived on, a place where people could reshape their fates, but at the price of losing what made them truly human. And those who entered seeking perfection often left with a far greater lesson than they had ever expected. The Lost and Found of Time. Chapter 1: The Door That Shouldn't Exist. In the heart of the city, between an antique bookstore and a tea shop that no one ever seemed to visit, stood an unremarkable wooden door. It bore no sign, no advertisement, nothing to suggest it was a place of business. And yet, those who truly needed it always found their way inside. Leon had never seen the door before. He had walked past this street countless times, and yet today, it was simply there. Something about it felt familiar. As if it had been waiting for him. Curiosity gnawed at him until, without realizing it, he had reached for the brass handle and pushed it open. The scent of old paper and clock oil greeted him as he stepped inside. The shop was dimly lit, its shelves lined not with books or trinkets, but with glass jars, each one filled with swirling golden light. A delicate ticking sound echoed through the space, as if time itself breathed here. Behind the counter stood an elderly woman with sharp silver eyes and hair braided like strands of spun moonlight. She glanced up from a massive ledger, her voice gentle but firm. "Welcome to the Lost and Found of Time. What have you misplaced?" Leon hesitated. "I don't think I lost anything. The woman tilted her head. "Everyone who steps through that door has lost something." She gestured to the countless jars behind her. "Some come for lost hours of sleep. Some come for forgotten birthdays. Some for things they didn't even know were missing." Leon frowned. It was absurd. Impossible. And yet, what if I don't remember what I lost? The woman smiled knowingly and pulled out a deep blue book from behind the counter. She flipped through the pages until she stopped at one that bore his name. "Ah. It seems you've lost 3 days." Leon felt his stomach drop. 3 days? When? She turned the book toward him. There, in neat golden ink, 3 dates were listed, dates that meant nothing to him. His mind was blank. "What happened on those days?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The woman's silver eyes softened. "That is for you to discover. If you wish to reclaim them, you may. But be warned, memories are lost for a reason. Some things are better left forgotten." Leon hesitated for only a moment before he answered, "I want them back." Chapter 2: The Price of Time. The woman nodded and reached beneath the counter, pulling out 3 glass jars filled with swirling golden light. "Each of these contains one of your missing days. To reclaim them, you must open the jars. But you should know, taking back lost time has consequences." Leon exhaled sharply. "What kind of consequences?" "Time is not stolen, only misplaced. It must be exchanged. To regain these days, you will have to lose something in return." "Lose what?" Leon asked warily. She didn't answer. Instead, she placed the jars before him. He reached for the first one and twisted the lid open. Chapter 3: The First Day, A Love Forgotten. The moment the jar opened, the golden light swirled around him, wrapping him in warmth. And then, he was standing in a park beneath cherry blossoms, their petals drifting like pink snow. A girl stood before him, laughing, her eyes shining like sunlight on water. Her name was Isabel. Leon staggered back, breath hitching. He had loved her? No, more than that, he had planned to marry her. They had shared dreams, whispered promises beneath the stars. And yet, until this moment, he had not even remembered she existed. Why had he forgotten her? As he stood there, reliving the day they had first met, the memory unraveled into heartbreak. He saw himself breaking her heart, walking away. The pain was too much, and so, somehow, he had chosen to forget her entirely. When he opened his eyes, he was back in the shop. The elderly woman watched him with something almost like pity. "Memories are not erased without reason," she murmured. Leon clenched his fists. "I want the next one." Chapter 4, The Second Day, A Dream Abandoned. The second jar opened, and once again, Leon was pulled into a forgotten moment. This time, he was in a small, cluttered art studio. A canvas stood before him, half-finished, colors swirling in breathtaking harmony. His younger self stood at the easel, painting with wild abandon, eyes filled with unbreakable passion. Leon sucked in a breath. He had wanted to be an artist. But life had pushed him in other directions. Bills, responsibilities, practicality, one by one, they had chipped away at his dream. Until, one day, he had simply let it go. When he returned to the shop, his hands were shaking. "You still have one more," the woman said quietly. Leon hesitated before he reached for the last jar. Chapter 5, The Third Day, A Moment That Changed Everything. The third memory was different. It was quieter, softer. A hospital room. A frail hand in his own. His mother's voice, whispering words he had long since buried. "Don't be afraid to live, Leon. Promise me." A choked sob escaped his lips. He had been there. She had been there. And yet, somehow, he had let time steal this from him. When the memory faded, he was crying. The woman watched, unblinking. Now, the price. Chapter 6, The Cost of Remembering. Leon wiped his eyes. "What do I lose?" The woman reached for the blue book and turned it to a fresh page. Slowly, she wrote something in golden ink. He leaned forward to read it. 1 year. His breath caught. A year? Memories shape us. You have regained pieces of yourself, but time must balance itself. 1 year of your future will be lost. You won't know which year, only that when it comes, it will simply vanish. Leon's heart pounded. He had a choice. But in the end, there was no choice at all. "Take it," he whispered. The woman closed the book, and the golden ink shimmered before fading into the page. It is done. Chapter 7, A Life Reclaimed. Leon stepped out of the shop as the sun was setting, his mind and heart heavier than before. His shadow stretched long against the pavement, real and whole once more. He had lost a year. But he had gained something greater. A love once cherished. A dream once abandoned. A promise once made. And as he walked away, the wooden door behind him disappeared, waiting for the next lost soul who needed to find their way home. Cyber Magic Academy. Chapter 1, The Invitation to the Impossible. New London, the city where reality and illusion blurred under neon lights, was a place where the impossible often felt real. Towering skyscrapers pierced the synthetic sky, and holographic billboards lit up the streets with promises of a brighter future. The world had moved past conventional education, learning was now immersive, digital, and tailored to the elite. But among all institutions, one stood above the rest. Cyber Magic Academy. To most, it was a myth, a whispered legend in the underground circles of the hyper-intelligent. A school where chosen students didn't just learn, they became magicians. Not the wand-waving kind, but manipulators of reality itself. The entrance to this academy wasn't through brick gates or ancient halls. It was hidden in the depths of cyberspace, accessible only through a neurological implant that connected one's consciousness to an AI-constructed world. No one applied. The academy found you. And for Kieran Vale, the invitation arrived at exactly midnight. The message was simple. You have been chosen. Step forward, or be forgotten. It was attached to a link. A single click would transport him into the Academy's realm. Kieran, a boy whose mind could process probabilities faster than any human, hesitated for only a moment. Then, with a deep breath, he clicked the link. The world around him dissolved into shimmering pixels. And when it reassembled, he was no longer in New London. He was standing before the gates of the most advanced school ever created. Chapter 2, A School Unlike Any Other. Cyber Magic Academy was breathtaking. The sky shifted colors in fluid gradients, responding to the emotions of its inhabitants. Floating towers hovered above a vast landscape of endless possibilities. Students in sleek robes weaved light into spells, bending reality itself. Or so it seemed. Kieran quickly learned that everything, the spells, the transformations, the enchantments, was all built on advanced neural projections. Their abilities were powered by AI algorithms, creating an illusion of magic so perfect it was indistinguishable from reality. But here was the catch. Their magic only worked inside the academy. Why does it disappear outside? Kieran asked his mentor, Professor Elias, a man who looked like a digital construct himself, his eyes flickering with data streams. Because magic must be contained, Elias said cryptically. Something about that answer unsettled Kieran. Chapter 3, The Students of the Impossible. Kieran wasn't alone in questioning the nature of the academy. Among his fellow students were Ava Lynn, a hacker prodigy who could manipulate the academy's code like a spellbook. She believed magic was just advanced programming. Ronan Blackwell, a quiet but deadly student who never spoke of his past. It was rumored he had once taken down an entire city surveillance system with a single command. Myra Solis, a girl with an uncanny ability to create illusions so real that even the AI itself struggled to distinguish them from truth. Together, they formed an unlikely alliance, drawn together by a single, unshakable suspicion. Something about this school was a lie. And then, it happened. A system malfunction. And for the first time, the magic became real. Chapter 4, The Glitch in Reality. It started with a flicker. Kieran was practicing reality manipulation when the sky above cracked, not like an illusion, but like glass shattering. His hand, previously just channeling data-driven magic, suddenly surged with real energy. Sparks danced from his fingertips. And then he felt it, not the artificial projections of the Academy's system, but something raw, untamed power flowing through his veins. The same thing happened to Ava and Ronan. Suddenly, their abilities were no longer just projections. They were real. And that was a problem. Because the Academy was never designed for real magic. It was designed to contain it. Chapter 5, The Ari's True Purpose. The next morning, 2 students were gone. No explanations. No records of them ever existing. Even the AI refused to acknowledge their absence. Where is Damien? Kieran demanded. The automaton guards, ever-present enforcers of the Academy's rules, simply stared with blank, unreadable expressions. Then, Professor Elias summoned them. The Academy is failing, he said, his voice devoid of warmth. It was built to ensure your powers remained under control. But now, the system is breaking down. Kieran clenched his fists. Why? What is this place really? Elias sighed. And then he told them the truth. Chapter 6, The Forgotten Apocalypse. Cyber Magic Academy was never meant to be a school. It was a containment facility. Centuries ago, the world fell to a catastrophe so great that human civilization was nearly wiped out. But a few individuals, those with reality warping powers, were placed in stasis, their minds transferred into this artificial world. Here, they were tricked into believing their magic was merely an illusion, to prevent them from ever awakening their true abilities. But now, Elias said, the system is collapsing. And if you wake up, the real world will never be the same again. Chapter 7, The Great Escape. Kieran, Ava, and Ronan had a choice. Stay in the illusion. Or break free into a world that might no longer exist. They chose to fight. With Ava's hacking, Ronan's stealth, and Kieran's probability calculations, they broke into the core chamber, the heart of the AI that controlled their prison. The moment Kieran touched the core, reality itself fractured. The walls of the academy crumbled. The sky flickered into oblivion. And then, they woke up. Chapter 8: The New World. The real world was not what they expected. They awoke in an underground bunker, their real bodies weak from centuries of stasis. Screens around them flickered to life. Outside, the earth was different. Cities were ruins, overtaken by nature. The sky was no longer blue but a violet haze. And in the distance, something stirred, a presence that had been waiting for them to awaken. The AI had not been their captor. It had been their protector. And now, they had set something free. Something that should have stayed forgotten. Kieran turned to Ava and Ronan. "This isn't over," he said. "It's just the beginning." The last screen blinked with a final message. Humanity's last magicians have awakened. Prepare for the war of reality. Danny's Cheese Moon Adventure. Chapter 1: The Homework Eaten by the Dog. I swear the math homework was really eaten by the dog. Danny Taylor raised 3 fingers for the 101st time as chalk dust cascaded from Mrs. Green's screw bun hairstyle. Outside the window, Robin suddenly flew backward, as if someone had pressed the world's rewind button, a consequence of Danny's comment yesterday that birds should fly backward to be cool. The golden retriever Bruce let out a cheese-scented belch at the classroom door, perfectly timed. What started as Danny's lazy excuse that morning had somehow become reality. Bruce had barged into class with the homework notebook soaked in drool, its cover marked with clear dog teeth imprints. "This is the 7th supernatural incident this week," Lisa whispered, poking Danny's back with her ballpoint pen. A corner of a NASA letter peeked from her uniform pocket. Ever since Danny said 3 days ago that she should become an astronaut, the acceptance letter had materialized like a howler from the wizarding world. As the school bell rang, the mayor's secretary rushed onto the playground with a megaphone. "The fireworks show is cancelled." "Repeat, the fireworks show is cancelled." Danny remembered complaining at the pizzeria yesterday that the fireworks gave him a headache, and now every firework in town had turned into a dud. Lisa pried open his palm to find an unlit sparkler, its wrapper labeled, "Contains mysterious disappearing magic." Chapter 2: The Cheese Moon Crisis. If the moon were made of cheese, would astronauts bring spaghetti? Danny mumbled through the last bite of his Oreo, peering casually through the astronomy club's telescope. Lisa's scream erupted 5 seconds later. White sludge is oozing from the moon's surface. NASA's live stream says it looks like melted mozzarella. That night, all the cheese in town began to flee. Parmesan swarmed out of packaging like termites. Cheddar tap danced in refrigerators. When Danny's fridge emitted a muffled thud, he found blue cheese spelling a distress signal in mold. "Stop lying." The next morning, a cheese rainstorm hit Pinecone Town. Lisa arrived holding a Swiss cheese umbrella, each raindrop burning holes through it. Know the worst part? She shoved a NASA alert at Danny. The moon's expanding like a cheese loaf in an oven. Earth's orbit is shifting. Chapter 3: The Liar's Apocalypse Party. On his 18th birthday, Danny was trapped in the town hall basement. Above him, a 50-meter-tall cheese wall oozed molten cheese lava. Mrs. Green's projector cast a doomsday countdown on the wall, 72 hours until Earth becomes charred crumbs in the universe's oven. To reverse this, you must tell the ultimate lie. Mrs. Green's laser pointer hovered over Danny's chest, but the price is that everyone will forget you ever existed. Behind her, surveillance screens showed cheese tornadoes swallowing the church's cross-topped steeple. Lisa slammed an amber pendant onto the table, its fossilized beetle suddenly fluttering inside. "Remember when you joked, 'This bug's still alive?' It's been smashing against the glass all morning." Danny finally realized even his careless quips were warping reality's laws. As cheese snowflakes drifted from the vents, Danny grabbed the last slice of birthday cake. "I'll tell the biggest lie ever." He licked frosting from his lips. "Everything I've ever said never happened." Chapter 4: The Vanished Hero. The world reassembled in a haze of cheese aroma. Lisa awoke in a clover field, the NASA letter now transformed into an art gallery ticket. Mrs. Green's homework notebook lay pristine, free of dog teeth marks. Only the town museum displayed a cryptic artifact, an amber pendant smudged with cream, labeled Time Capsule of the Nameless Boy. In an unmapped crevice of space-time, the cratered cheese moon might still cradle an unlit sparkler. When a girl peers through a telescope, she'll glimpse faint letters melting into the Milky Way, the last lie dissolved in stardust. See you tomorrow. Chapter 5: The Liar's Final Dance. As Parmesan crumbs rained from the basement ceiling, Danny snatched the 18th candle from his strawberry cake. One last lie, he vowed, tasting frosting, only to find Lisa slipping her grandfather's Swiss Army knife into his pocket, a family heirloom said to cut through any lie. Everything I've ever said. Danny's words drowned in the roar of a cheese tornado shattering bulletproof glass. He remembered joking about the mayor's wig being real hair, which had since taken root and sprouted golden curls at City Hall. Never happened. The world glitched like a deleted file. Bruce's drool-soaked homework turned blank. NASA's cheese moon reverted to barren rock. But Danny felt himself fading, fingertips turning translucent. Wait! Lisa brandished the amber pendant. You said this holds a time capsule. It was a joke they'd made days prior, yet the pendant now blazed with golden light. Danny's vanishing body was sucked into the amber, his last sight a crack Lisa carved in reality's fabric with the Swiss Army knife. Chapter 6: The Cheese Hero Lives On. 3 years later, Lisa bit into a cheddar burger at Pinecone's Fair, her amber pendant warm against her NASA spacesuit. Tomorrow, she'd embark on her first moon mission. Miss, try our moonlight cheese? A vendor offered a sample, a half-burnt sparkler tucked into silver hair. The flavor made Lisa weep. It tasted exactly like Danny's birthday cake. During liftoff, her cockpit window revealed a cheese-colored scar on the moon. Upon landing, a familiar voice crackled in her helmet, "Welcome to the Liar's Memorial." In the lunar dust, she found a rusted Swiss Army knife beside strawberry-frosted coordinates. Chapter 7: Candles Across the Galaxy. A decade later, on Christmas Eve, Dr. Lisa Rivera, NASA's chief scientist, activated the warp drive. Her ship hurtled toward the coordinates etched in frosting. At the galaxy's edge, within the Cheese Nebula, she discovered the absurd truth: Danny had become a living lie. His body, a shifting mass of cheese molecules, patched cosmic cracks with cream lava. "You're 18 years late," Cheese Danny laughed, tossing her a strawberry cake with candles matching the years lost. As Lisa blew them out, erased memories fell like meteors. "Time to go home." Danny's melting hand pointed to the Swiss knife flying toward a rift. "Tell the moon a lie every birthday, that's my interstellar postcard." Final chapter: Moonlight Call. Today, Pinecone children whisper absurd lies to the moon, hoping for cosmic gifts. Every Friday at 7 p.m., the town radio broadcasts galactic static. Some say it's the Cheese Nebula sneezing, others swear they hear cake being sliced. Lisa's office always holds an unlit strawberry cake. When NASA detects mysterious lunar pulses, she tells her amber pendant fresh fibs. Spacesuits secretly hold cheese fondue sets. In a parallel attic, 18-year-old Danny smirks at untouched homework. What if this assignment finished itself? Outside, the moon drips golden honey, and Bruce's bark carries the tang of aged Gouda. Post-credits scene. NASA's latest discovery, Moon's dark side now bears Happy 18th in strawberry cream. Lisa's helmet visor reflects two figures, one translucent, nibbling a star-shaped cheese chunk.